I'm Andy Villamarzo with SBLive Sports Florida, and we're here for the second edition of the Coastal High School Sports Show. And we're here with a special guest, USA Today Network's Jon Santucci, good friend here. And I don't know anybody else he travels more than I do. So if that tells you how many miles he puts on his car, he does this even more than I do. So Jon, how have you been? I know it's been a long off season, but lots been going on in the high school football world.
Yeah, I'm good. Appreciate you having me on. I feel very honored to be. I actually, I don't know if I should feel honored or just a little insulted that I'm on show number 2. I think I'm going to need a list on show 1. And I got to figure out, basically our friendship based off that. But no, I'm excited to be on.
Well, we had Joe Frisaro on, one of our other SBLive writers, and we talked a little bit about kind of the South Florida end of things when we're talking about high school football, and we know that's where everything is happening. You have Miami Central loading up over this offseason with a ton of transfers. You have Columbus looking to chase another state championship. St. Thomas Aquinas and their drive for 5. Chaminade is once again loaded up. I mean, with all these things going on in South Florida, is there a storyline or multiple storylines that you're looking at as we head into these preseason games?
I think the biggest storyline for me is, are we going to have a national champion in Florida this year? And a lot of that is going to be decided long before Chaminade and Central play in week 5. I think that's kind of the game that, if we are lucky enough to have one or both of those teams go undefeated, that becomes the resume game going through to the second half of the season. But, if Central beats Bishop Gorman, there's no reason why they should not firmly be, in that mix for number 1 in the country. St. Thomas Aquinas has a great chance to make a statement in week 1 when they play, Bosco. And so, I really want to see, can we get one of those teams in that mix? And the thing I think will go a long way too is you might have a champion that gets help from somebody that's not playing them. And what I mean by that is, if Aquinas beats Bosco, but they, even if they don't win the championship, it just looks better for Florida. Does that make sense? So yeah. I think, Chaminade last year losing to Gorman the way they did, I think that actually hurt Miami Central's chances of winning a national championship. But I think there's probably some people going, well, if that's one of the best teams in South Florida, and I think there's a lot of different reasons why that game went the way it did. But I think if we can have a good showing in that Broward versus, USA showcase, coming out of the gate, we got some really big hitters coming into the state. So I think if we have a good showing, I think there's a good chance we get one if one of these teams can run the table.
And with so many, just when you look at the landscape of high school football in Florida, when we talk about the metro classes, it's dominated by South Florida teams. 4M was won by Miami team, 3M by obviously Fort Lauderdale based team, and so on. Is there a team, if you had to say that team, I think, could make a legitimate run in that metro class to kind of unseat one of these South Florida teams? Which team would you say that is, and what classification?
I have to pick one. I don't even know if this would count as a sleeper. I really like what Mandarin brings to the table. I think they might have the best secondary in the state. I know some people in South Florida are going to freak out when they hear that, but you're talking about 2 Penn State commits and a kid who's going to have a chance next year to go pretty much anywhere in the country. They got Jamie French. They've got an outstanding quarterback who's headed to Florida State. I think Mandarin has a lot of really, really good pieces. Now the question is, can they get out of that region? That's a really good region. When you're talking about Seminole and you're talking about Apopka, and maybe I should switch that because Apopka is about, a field goal away from winning a state championship last year. So yeah. I really like what Mandarin has. I think Apopka, I think Jeff Rolson might be the most underrated coach in the state. They're going to be there at the end. Just watch, like that whoever gets to that regional final. And I don't think you can discount, a Lake Mary with their fantastic quarterback and things like that. But You'd imagine on paper that it would be one of those three, or two of those three, Mandarin, Apopka, Seminole. Whoever gets out, I think has a chance to run the table. So
Yeah,
I'm going to say 4S, and that has nothing to do with Columbus. I think Columbus is phenomenal. I think Dave Dunn's an outstanding coach, but I really like Region 1. I do not see anybody beating Miami Central. No offense, American Heritage, but they're a South Florida team too. So that's I get to say that. I would think the other one would be Edgewater or Jones. I would think in 3M. I thought Jones got hot at the right time last year, and I was surprised the way they played against Homestead. They had a lot going against them outside the off the field with, there was the shooting at the school where somebody died that was not related to the football team or the program or even the school. It just happened to be in the neighborhood. Right. You had one of their players got shot during the postseason. There was a lot of threats around the school. And they really banded together and they made that run. They destroyed Edgewater in the regional final. And then they got to, the Final Four. And I think they jumped up on Homestead, and then Homestead just, ran away with it. I think Jones feels like they have a lot to get back to. And I also feel like Edgewater is going to look the exact same way. Edgewater is undefeated going into that regional final. And it's 0-0, I think, at the end of the first quarter. And then at halftime, it's like 28-0. And it just all fell apart in one quarter. So I feel like Edgewater's looking at it going, we've got the pieces to make a run again. So I wouldn't be surprised to see either one of those schools. And they're in Jesuit. I don't think you can ever overlook Jesuit. I think they've got a really good team. So,
yeah, they got some good. Will Griffin at quarterback, coming back for just a sophomore season. My gosh,
right.
Somebody that definitely
committed to Notre Dame. They got a lot of pieces. The other team that for me is I really just want to see what they do is Carrollwood Day. Carrollwood Day has so many skill players. I think they've got 6 players on our top 100. In the class of 2024. So, I really like Fagan. I really like, their wide receivers. So, they're almost at the point where it's like, 6 or 7 wins is not, it's just not, it's just not good enough with that team. They've got a lot of talent. So can they make a run? But, again, anybody to beat Chaminade, I think that's going to be a tall order.
Yeah, I mean, from what we saw at Gene Cox Stadium last year, just the athleticism overall. I think when me and you last spoke over there in Tallahassee, we were saying this offense is like, it's unreal. They can just get up and down the field almost effortlessly. It just looks like the Golden State Warriors, I would say, of high school football. They're just, these touchdowns are coming like 3-pointers and they're just raining on you like all game long. So for even a team like Catholic,
they didn't have a lot of possession in the first half of that game. I don't know. I haven't looked at the breakdown, but I felt like they had a lot of 2-minute drives where CCC just, I don't know anybody could have stopped them. And, you're talking about maybe the best, receiving group in the state. And that's saying a lot because there's a bunch of them. I want to see, what Cardinal Newman and Benjamin do. Cardinal Newman and Benjamin are in a really interesting spot because they kind of, the road to Chaminade goes through themselves, and obviously the road to state goes through Chaminade. So I feel like talking to both of those coaches this offseason, both of them have been really focused on those 2 games. They're focused on each other, and then they're focused on what do we have to do to beat Chaminade. When you look at, I don't know if they can, but when you look at Cardinal Newman's secondary, that's one of the few secondaries in 1M that you go, maybe they can line up with these guys for a while. I don't know if you can do it for 4 quarters, but I think Cardinal Newman's got some really good pieces to work with.
Yeah, I feel like a team that is going to be armed or able to beat Chaminade, they're going to have to control the clock, keep their offense on the bench for a long period of time. Hopefully they get on the field and they're cold and they somehow go 3-0. I mean, and to us, that's we don't see very much. I mean, probably the only time they really did that was against Bishop Gorman in the Geico National Series. But other than that, against anybody else, it seemed like going 3-and-out is just not something that Damian Jones and his crew do very much.
No.
Don't.
Well, I really thought last year the only team that was well poised to beat them, and everything would have had to go their way, was Trinity, because I felt like their running game with their offensive line, with a quarterback who can do some good things, but also is very comfortable being a game manager and letting the running game do the work. I thought Trinity would have had a chance, and obviously, University beat them, so we never found out. But that I would have been really intrigued by that matchup, just because I felt like, outstanding coach who knows how to win, going up against this, this beast of Chaminade. I just would have liked to see that chess match. Who's your pick? You see all these questions. Who's your pick? I think we said like 7 or 8 schools. You said 1, but who's your pick to unseat a South Florida team?
I want to say I can agree with you in 3M. I do feel like Edgewater and Jones are a couple candidates. Obviously, you have Homestead with a first-year head coach going in, and they do have the dudes on offense. I mean, Townsend's back at quarterback. You add Randall from Mainland as a receiver. I mean, they got guys. So I guess in any of the classifications, 3M or 4M, obviously Apopka's back with it just seems like they go through the motions during the regular season, and then one of the games, which it could be a rivalry game, it kind of jump starts them, and then they make this. And I just can't stop having people try to call me. They make this run and they go to the state championship game, and I think we're left kind of wondering, how did they go ahead and make that run? So
right,
4M and 3M to me, 2 classifications. I agree with you. Miami Central just seems destined to win 2M again. They're too good. I mean, they got the Cunningham brothers from California coming in, 2 kids who were really good at the defensive end positions. You got this 3-headed quarterback battle going on between J.C. Evans, Antonio Smith, and Britza came from over from California. I mean, just talking to our friend Larry Bluestein, he's told me this team looks like IMG almost. I mean, they top to
when
bottom.
I spring, that I literally said that to Coach Joseph. I said, you're almost at that spot where there's that much talent at certain positions that you go. And when you're at that place, you're at that program where guys are transferring in from out of state, and a lot of guys are transferring in. You're doing a lot of things right, So, somebody's going to read that the wrong way. I didn't mean that in any other way other than the program's doing well. But I think Central's really. It's funny. Why do we only say Aquinas in the drive for 5? Why don't we say that with Chaminade or with Central?
I've been saying it all offseason with them and Aquinas, the drive for 5 for both of these teams, because you look at just what they did last season, how they did it. Obviously, it was a bit tougher for Central when you're talking about the actual championship game itself, because they're in a dogfight with Heritage and 42. I mean, it was a game. Aquinas seemed to dominate Homestead from the get-go. So for me, they're the front runner, and so is Central. But Central's coming off a season where it was a tighter game. There's just implications for Central all throughout the year, because I feel like we all look at Aquinas' schedule and we feel pretty good about them winning each of their games outside of that first game against St. John Bosco. That's going to be the game where we're all like, let's see what you're made of. You're going to have a new starting quarterback. You got the 2-headed running back monster in the backfield with Stacey Gage and Jordan Lyle. You got this defense that's pretty good. I mean, what are you guys going to do? What is Roger Harriet and his guys got cooked up for this really talented team coming from California? But outside of that, the rest of the games, the other 9 games, I think we're like Aquinas is going to be the favorite. And then going through the playoffs, they're going to be the team to beat. So I don't have a lot of question marks for them at all. And then going back to Chaminade, just the teams they're going to face potentially in the state championship. if it's in Tallahassee again, I feel like we just never know where these championship games are actually going to be at. I'm just going to assume it's in Tallahassee for 1M. Yeah, Clearwater Central. Like I'm the same with you on Carrollwood Day. I just feel like whenever they go to the playoffs, I don't know what happens. It's just they have all this talent, and I got to see them against CCC, and I felt like they were just a step ahead of Carrollwood Day every time. It's like they knew what they were going to do before they ever did it, and they just were able to kind of bully ball them. So can they?
Go on.
I was just going to say, can they get over that hump? Because I think it's more mental with CCC than it is actually like, okay, they're just way better than us. I think they're equal in talent. It's just Chris Harvey, the former Miami Hurricane lineman. He's pretty doggone good coach. He goes into these with a pretty solid game plan. It's going to be, can they match kind of the X's and O's with them? That's where I go with that matchup potentially. But that's not even the state championship matchup. That's just who might get to Chaminade. Trinity Christian's another one. Trinity Christian Academy with Colin Hurley, and you got Cam Anderson on defense. Darnell Rogers is going to be the lone running back in that offense now. He's kind of somebody I forgot for some reason because he shared all those carries with Trayon Webb last year. He's somebody who could probably go for 2,000. Trinity Christian could be back. They could be making a run on them. So I think South Florida dominates. And something I was going to jump into, John, I know the big thing you do around the state is recruiting. All around the state, just heading into this season, who would you say are some guys that aren't the same names we talk about all the time? Who are some guys that have really impressed you that you've said, man, I'm expecting this kid to blow up in 2023. Like he should have a big season after not doing really anything in 2022.
Well, I don't want to say that they didn't do anything in 2022. Let's start with that. And you didn't tell me the question was coming, so I'm trying to do this off the top of my head. So here's where I get bad is not knowing every kid's name in the state of Florida. I think Wakaiva's quarterback is really good. He's committed to North Carolina A&T. I've seen him several times this offseason, and I saw him in the spring game against Seminole. And he had an 80-yard touchdown run through the heart of Seminole's D. I mean, right up the middle, and outran every kid on Seminole. And he can throw the ball too. So I feel like he's a guy that I don't think he ends up in North Carolina A&T. I feel like he's going to be a guy that
Tyree Davis.
Pardon?
Tyree Davis.
Thank you. I don't think he ends up in North Carolina A&T. I think there's at least a group of 5 school that's going to look at him and go, "Oh, okay, yeah, that we missed it." Right. I'm really interested to see, a guy like Mason Carter at Baldwin, who really, really just blew up over the spring. I want to see what he does this season because I feel like now that when you commit to a Power 5. You've got a target on your back. I really want to see what he does. Who I'm just super intrigued by? I want to see if Jason Patterson at Sneads gets to 3,000. And I know that's a guy who absolutely did it last year, right? But I feel like, because he plays at Sneads, I just feel like he's still under the radar.
Yeah.
And, guy who's, I think I believe he's in our top 50 or our top 55, just committed to Cincinnati. So I want to see, what kind of year he has. My guess, though, is I don't think he'll get to 3,000 unless they make it to the state championship game, just because I think at some point you're going to have to call off the Dogs, especially the way they run their offense. He'll get his touches.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're going to be up big in some of those games, and I feel like it'll just be pouring it on to keep your Power 5 running back going up against the opposition. So those are a couple guys that spring to mind just that I'm immediately thinking about. There's some offensive linemen that I really like that I just want to see kind of how they continue to mature throughout the season. But I Davis is the one for me though that immediately sticks out, that I just feel like he is much better than kind of the recognition he's received. That's no rub on North Carolina A&T. I'm just looking at a kid who's got all the measurables. He's still a bit raw, but I feel like somebody's going to look at him and just say the upside is all there. We need to go get him.
Yeah. Well, I did not. That was actually a player I did not see play last year, but hopefully I will this year. But John, it was great having you on this afternoon, and hopefully next time I can give you a little heads up with some of the questions. But hey, it is great to have
We
you.
only got through two, so I don't know. Hey, do we have like 30 more seconds? Can I just ask you one more question? Can I put you on the spot?
Yep.
All right. We talked about Central. We talked about Aquinas, and look, is there a team there that can beat them? We might be in a situation next year where those two teams are playing for an open division championship. What do you think about that idea of the top 8, top 10 teams playing in like a divisionless or a classificationless championship? What do you think about that?
I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that, in talking with, I was just at Calvary Christian yesterday, and the Warriors, they have a pretty good team in Clearwater, but they know at the end of the road who's going to be waiting. They know it's Miami Central. A team like that lost to Lakewood, which Lakewood's always got a good team out of St. Petersburg. They feel a little deterred by these. Just a powerhouse like Miami Central is what they got to go through to win it all. And if these guys are playing each other for an open division championship, I think that gives a big sigh of relief to a lot of these other teams that are like, oh, we can finally be able to maybe compete and to win something. Because I think that's why we saw Metro and Suburban happen, because now you have these teams in Suburban who get that opportunity. And then you now open it up even more so to all these teams that are almost in this exclusive elite club, and they get to play for a championship. That kind of brings more of an opportunity for other schools to be able to win a state championship. So to me, I think it's great. I think it's something that could definitely it helps make you look forward to something at the end, instead of feeling like, okay, well, we could have a great season, but this is what's going to happen at the end. And it's not because I don't like kids. It's not because I'm a good coach. It's because of the battle of attrition. We're just going to face a team that's got so many power fives and so many power fours that not going to be able to beat these guys.
No, I completely agree. And the thing I would say too, and you mentioned before Homestead and Aquinas and how that game was a little out of hand. That was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, which I think if you're Homestead, that's the best you could probably hope for, is to put yourself in a position to win that game. And obviously it just didn't go their way in the fourth quarter. But when I look at the way that every single game that was played at Drive Pink Stadium last year was a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, that tells me that we're on the right track, because we're getting more competition, better competition in the state champ. I don't want to see a blowout in the final. I just don't. So if we can, make it a little tougher to get there and make the teams better matchup. So if we can do that in an open division, and then, you talked about 2M. If all of a sudden you've got Calvary and maybe a Lakewood or even a Tampa Catholic making a run, now you can make a run, a real run that you don't have to feel like a massive underdog. You feel like you got a good shot. So I like it. I just wanted to see, you and I haven't had a chance to really chat about that yet, but I love it. I love the idea.
Absolutely love it. Well, we'll definitely be talking here throughout the season. John, always great to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll do this again soon.